Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you all to understand something about the world of business. Never can I think of a time where three letters have essentially been something that whenever you hear them, you realize that somebody's about to lose some money. That's right, this week we are going to be talking about DEI because Microsoft has made a pretty big shift. Plus, we're going to be talking about how it's negatively affecting a certain game over at Ubisoft that apparently has gotten them in trouble with the Japanese government. And then the Halo show got canceled. I don't think that has anything to do with the DEI, but we're kind of happy about that. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of On the Grind.
Prick.
So to get us started, we're going out west.
Clickety clackety.
Oh yeah. Wayne, tell us about your weekly review of this classic John Wayne film.
Well, I picked this because biggest reason is one thing, I'm an old man. I'm 45 years old. I can enjoy westerns, and screw you if you don't like them. But biggest reason is this is something that me and my dad used to do together. We watch a western. Yeah, it was really funny because as a kid, it was like he would watch a western. I was like, no, I want to watch cartoons. Because there's only one TV in the house. And he was taking over. But the rule was he worked, so he got to watch TV. He could watch what he wanted. So I had Saturday mornings pretty much and afternoons, and he got it the rest of the time. So, but as I grew older, I started actually watching the films with him and really appreciate them. And the reason I picked The Searchers is that this particular film is the movie John Wayne should have won an Oscar.
Oh?
Because, yes, it is. This is his best acting he has ever done. There's an old saying in people who watch John Wayne films is that John Wayne just plays himself in movies with a different name, right? This was not that movie. He put himself into this part. This was a phenomenal performance by him. I've only seen a couple, maybe two or three other films where he is acted in a way that you wouldn't think this is a John Wayne movie. To kind of go over everything. It's a movie, and he plays a character named Ethan Edwards. And he was he'd actually joined the Confederacy during the Civil War. And this is his story of coming home and dealing with things that happened after that. And it is, like I said, there are moments that'll give you chills. There are moments that'll make you laugh. There are moments that make you cry. It's really that good. I was going over. I couldn't get a chance to sit down and watch the whole thing, but I was able to watch most of it. A lot of clips from it, just so I can kind of refresh my memory about some of the fun things in this movie. Just to get some things out of the way. He definitely has a racism against Native Americans, particularly Comanches, in this movie.
I mean, fair.
But there's a reason for it. One thing that you have to pick up on the clues in the movie is that Comanches not only killed his mother, but also killed his wife. So, he's somebody who, if anybody has a reason to hate Comanches, it would be him. Because he doesn't have a problem with other tribes. It's only the Comanches. So anyway, to get to the gist of it, he comes home and he comes home to his brother's home, and his sister-in-law seems like he's really close to her, right? And that's one of the things that I really sticks out to me. He's very close to her. He pays special attention to her. So you may think, there's something happened, something went on there at some point, right?
Right.
Something was going on. And of course, he sees his nieces and nephew and all that stuff. And as things go on, there's there's apparently, some uprising, or what they call, in the old country, a ruckus was happening. So the Texas Rangers, who is led by Ward Bond, who is another great actor of the time period, very good character actor. He shows up and he swears in Jeffrey Hunter, who is playing his nephew Martin. And if anybody knows who Jeffrey Hunter is, he probably would be remembered. Unfortunately, he's probably mostly remembered for being the captain that got fired in Star Trek, the original series. He was Captain Pike before they brought in William Shatner to play Captain Kirk. But his biggest role was probably playing Jesus Christ and Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't forget that one. Right? Very big production movie at the time too. But yeah. So yeah, and also he has a little problem with Martin because Martin is like half Comanche. So he's like, all right, you're there. I mean, I guess you're kind of family. That's okay, but you're still a half breed. It gets better as the movie goes on because they basically, I'll get to that in a minute. So they go off to find out what's causing this ruckus. Well, they find out it is Comanche raiding parties are doing this, and they go off. They do this and that. Well, what they found out later is that the Comanches actually doubled back around and came after it. And they basically burned his family's home down and killed just about everybody in there. And the big thing was because the sister-in-law was named Martha. When he first comes in, he starts yelling for Martha. So that not even for his brother, not for the children. He's yelling Martha, and he finds Martha, and he walks into the home. He sees what he sees. They don't ever show it. He walks back out, and Martin, he's running in. Because he's saying Aunt Martha, Aunt Martha. So Ethan stops him, tries to stop him, and he has to punch him to stop him. And he tells another guy that's with him, he said, "Don't let him go in there."
Oh,
yeah. Don't. And so after that, they found out that the young boy, his brother and his sister-in-law, they're dead. But there's a chance that the girls are alive because Comanches had a thing about taking young women,
right.
Even little girls, right?
They were slave takers.
Yeah. So they go, him, Martin, and another guy. They go off tracking because the other guy is was not engaged, but he was seeing the oldest daughter, Lucy, I believe it was. Make sure I'm right on that because I like to keep my Lucy. So they go off and they're tracking and everything like that. And at one point they had a part, they get to a canyon and it kind of trails off. And they say, well, you got tracks going here and tracks going there. And he says, I'll go check these tracks in this canyon. And like I said, this is where, it starts getting the acting chops really start coming in. While later he comes back and he, jumps off his horse and he throws his gun on the ground. He sits sits on the ground, takes his knife out and just starts digging into the sand, just digging, just randomly digging. And they said, what did you see? He went, huh? Oh, nothing. And they noticed that he didn't have his coat. His coat was a Confederacy coat, one of the officer coats, and they noticed it's where's your coat at? He said, oh, I must have lost it in there. I'm not going back for it though. And he gets on his horse and he said, let's go. He said there was nothing down there. So they take off. They cut to another scene, and apparently they found an encampment of the Comanche. And the other guy, the fiance, runs out. He's coming back, and he says I saw her. I saw Lucy. I saw her. She was wearing that blue dress of hers. She's alive. And he goes, no, she's not alive. He says what do you mean? And he goes that's what they call a buck. That's what they call a male, Comanche. He says that was a buck wearing her dress. He was trying to fool you, And he goes, but how do you know? He said, because, I buried Lucy back in that canyon.
Oh,
And then the next lines were the absolute best lines I've ever heard John Wayne deliver. And he was yelling them, and it was so good because the guy said, What did they? He said, what do you want me to do? Draw you a picture? Spell it out? Don't you ever ask me. As long as you live, don't you ever ask me more.
yeah, they weren't kind, the Comanche,
No.
and especially the bandits that they did trading with, which were called Comancheros. That
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
they were awful.
Mm-hmm. Because they basically were, just to give a little history lesson, Comancheros were in that land by permission of the Comanche, and they could do whatever the fuck they wanted. It was like they were like living like kings. They, there was no laws. They could just be terrible people. But anyway, so to try to sum up, the thing. So basically, Ethan and Martin end up going on a long journey where they're trying to track down Debbie, who's the youngest, right? And for years and years they're trying to track Debbie and everything. One day they got a meeting with the chief of the Comanches, and while they were there was Debbie. She had grown up; she was a teenager at this point, but she had been in that camp. So who knows what she had gone through, in those years, right? When they had left, she comes out to them and she tells Martin. She says, "Go, you need to go. They'll kill you if you don't leave." And Ethan wants to kill her because she's, as he said, she's quote no good anymore, right? She's not a white girl anymore, and so him and Martin had a fight and they ended up getting away, but then they come back later, and because Ethan is decided, they come back with they come back with the Rangers, and they end up having the military coming with them and all that stuff. And there's some moments in there that are funny, but just getting to the main story. Ethan's intending on killing Debbie, and Martin is intending on saving her, right? And he did his best. Martin, God bless him, he did his best. But when he, got away from him, and Debbie was running away, and Ethan went to chase after her, and she was trying to get away from him. And then when he finally got to her, he grabbed her, and he picked her up and held her up in the light, like in the sunlight, and then put her. Sorry, I get a little emotional because it's such a good scene. And he holds her in his arms, and he says, "Let's go home, Debbie."
Oh, hell.
Because prior to that, he had actually killed the chief and scalped him, because that was his vengeance. He wanted vengeance on him. He knew killed his wife. He knew he killed his mother. He knew all these things. He even told Martin at one point, because they had his war lance with scalps on it, and he said one of those was his mother's, right? So, he got his vengeance. And I saw something that I read, and I was like, that's a good point. They said once he had his vengeance, it let his heart open up for something else. And like I said, it was such a good movie. And there was one line while they're near the beginning of the movie, I will say it was really funny, this little scene, because the head of the Texas Rangers, he was also a preacher, right? So you got a preacher and a captain of the Texas Rangers, right? And in one person. And one of the fun
combo.
They were getting surrounded by the Comanches, and he goes, he said, so Reverend, what are you going to do? He said, well, what would you do, Ethan? He said, if it was me, I'd run like hell. He said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And at one point, he asked a guy who was an older guy. He goes hey, Mose, where's that river at? And then Mose, the guy who plays Mose, it was funniest delivery ever. He goes I've already been baptized, Reverend. Thank you kindly. But all in all, great movie. Like I said, John Wayne should have won an Oscar for this. I don't know why he did not win an Oscar for this. I'm glad he finally got an Oscar. True Grit was a good movie, but it was not as strong as this, And I would definitely, if anybody, if you like old westerns or if you just like good movies, definitely check this out. It's really good.
There's one note that I have to put out there because before we move on to the next topic, because the instant you went Martha, I'm like, the name. Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
How do you know that name? How do you know that name? Martha.
God, that movie is so fucking bad.
Yeah, Martha.
Oh man. I'm not happy that Henry Cavill's not Superman. I'm very pissed off about that. And I'm also very pissed off at the fact that Gal Gadot is no longer Wonder Woman. I think those are bad moves on the studio's part. But Jesus fucking Christ, Batman v Superman is bad.
It was a bad movie, yeah.
Wait, Gal Gadot is no longer going to be Wonder Woman?
No.
No, they're going to recast more than likely.
Yep. So.
No, keep her.
Yeah, a lot of people liked her.
A lot of people did like her, but there's certain people in Hollywood that are going to cave because some people are going to complain that Gal Gadot is from Israel.
At least keep Henry, please. He was the best Superman.
He already gone
too. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, James Gunn. Fucker.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and get to our first topic of the day. So, it has been argued for years that DEI departments are a problem. For those who do not know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And a lot of major corporations have these departments now. And they are effectively, from a business standpoint, they have been an albatross around the necks of a lot of these companies because a lot of decisions that get made by these DEI groups end up dividing the customer base more than uniting them behind whatever it is that you're trying to sell. Oftentimes, go ahead, Mike.
One of the issues that they tend to have is that they tend to they don't cause disruption by themselves necessarily, but they do start parasitizing funds and resources from the actual mission and causing people that aren't the best for the job to be hired. They're pretty good, but they're not the best for what the mission of the company is. And it causes errors to build over time. So it takes a long time for DEI initiatives to cause problems. It's really noticeable issue these days, considering that most of these started happening roughly around the introduction of the ESG, or the Environmental Social Governance system that was put into place a couple of years ago to try and format the culture of various companies on the stock market. It's a kind of a brutal parasite that's been infested across all these companies that are just it's absurd, the amount of resources that have been wasted on just constantly going for check boxes and people that fulfill various quantities rather than quality. And it's terrible. Ugh.
And the big thing is that it's been something that a lot of us have noticed over the years. I think the big culmination and kind of what woke a lot of people up to exactly how bad some of these companies are getting with these DEI focuses was the Sweet Baby issue. Of course, that created the Sweet Baby Detected group that, of course, the game journalists tried to destroy. That's effectively what made that one chick from Kotaku, Alyssa Mercante, infamous now. Basically trying to dox a bunch of people in a Discord server and a whole bunch of nasty stuff. It's a whole different story. But we've seen games that have a heavy DEI focus have been failing left and right. And, or, pissing off substantial amounts of potential customers. And now we find that Microsoft, who is arguably, well, obviously they're a software and hardware giant, and on top of that, the game, Xbox Live Games Pass effectively has the monopoly on game subscriptions in the digital realm, which is why they're kind of fucking everyone over with their new pricing model. But that's a whole another thing. But they have reported, and this is from the New York Post. I'll go ahead and read it from them. Microsoft reportedly fires DEI team, becoming latest company to ditch woke policy. So, reading from the New York Post says, Microsoft has reportedly laid off a team devoted to diversity, equity, and inclusion after pouring millions of dollars into the initiative, becoming the latest company to ditch the quote-unquote woke policy. The big tech giant disbanded the DEI team at the beginning of the month due to changing business needs, according to a July 1st email obtained by Business Insider. It is unclear how many employees were affected. Now, one thing to say about this New York Post article is that it's not 100% sure how many people actually got laid off, but it's the one word I see bandied about the most is substantial. So this is huge, to say the least. And it's by the way, it's not the first time that it's happened, but both Google and Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, have cut down on their DEI programs and cut out a lot of staff. Funnily enough, so did John Deere, which John Deere had a DEI program. That shocked the shit out of me. I'm like, John Deere? Really? John Deere. Okay. But anyway, this has been something that a lot of people have been talking about on the internet for years upon years, is the whole DEI problem. And the basic idea that it is, if there's a word that I could think of for DEI programs, it's vestigial.
Another one that I'm kind of fond of, thanks to Scott Adams, is didn't earn it.
Yeah, that's a good one. The big thing about this is that, like, the reason I use the word vestigial, like, and for those who, if I'm using too big of a word, for those of you playing the home game, your appendix is vestigial. It is something that can be in your body, but you could lose it and lose nothing. You wouldn't even notice it. But if you keep it in your body for too long, it can kill you. If it explodes. And that effectively is what DEI is. DEI is the appendix of all these companies. And a lot of these companies are exploding and very, very badly doing damage to these companies. And we still see it in other companies that we're getting leaks from them, that the DEI department is having a little bit too much influence on the creation of it. One of the leaks, which there's some elements of it that aren't 100% verified, but were of the upcoming Wolverine game, where, Logan looks like Logan, but for some reason the model that they use of Jean Grey looks like a 40-year-old wine aunt.
There's a feeling that Jean Grey was modeled off of someone in the staff.
And it wouldn't be the first time that team did it, because they modeled Black Cat off of Sam Maggs.
Oh, God. I was going to say body on 10 years of crack and the Phoenix Force.
Yeah. And again, that was something, oddly enough, that we saw with the first Spider-Man game, where the main game was really good, and then the fucking the DLC was terrible because all the characterization was just wrong. We could thank Sam Maggs for that. And then the other thing notable about this is just that the discussion about this has always been wild to me. is how many of these companies have ever had a problem with diversity? Like, the
well,
one
there's
that comes to mind,
diversity, shakes head, and then there's diversity, nods.
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I've worked for big corporations in my life. Like, the city I live in is the capital of State Farm, basically. Like, this is one of the biggest, like, insurance towns in the country, and
that'd explain your love for cocky.
Yeah. The thing about it is, like, every time I've ever walked into a building of one of these major corporations, whether I was working security or something like that, these companies have never had diversity problems. Ever. There's people from all different walks of life. If there's one... The only diversity problem I have seen is it seems like their software departments have a ton of Indian people and not much else.
I mean...
well... You know, you mentioned, John Deere?
Yeah.
The one that shocked me was Tractor Supply.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Right? Like, you know, when they issued their statement saying, like, we're going to get away from, like, these diversity endeavors and go more back to 4-H and stuff. I was like, wait, you got out of 4-H? What the?
Yeah, like, no,
did this happen? And why did you do that? What the fuck is wrong with you?
How the fuck do you miss the mark that bad? But then again, that's been the whole thing. Is like this DEI stuff has been a lot of people that the didn't earn it thing makes sense, and these are people that don't know anything about what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. They're there to basically be your morality police. They're like the red sashes from the book 1984.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when, Tractor Supply made that statement. Excuse me. One of the things I saw that was, thank you, Banjo. One of the things I saw was that people were complaining. They said, and they said, well, this will, what do you call it? This will keep minority farmers from, wanting to, use Tractor Supply. I'm like, I'm going to tell you a little something about minority farmers, and I'm using that in air quotes because I know minority farmers. They don't give a fuck about that shit. They you know what they care about? That the crops get water, and that that the potatoes get into the ground, and that the corn is like growing. That's what they give a shit about. They don't give a fuck about this other shit. When my grandma had a saying one time, when you're digging in the dirt, you all come up dirty. Basically, and so that stuff like they just won't feel safe. I'm like, it's fucking
it's farming.
Yeah, have you ever met a farmer? If a farmer doesn't feel safe, do you want to know what they do? They go to the gun store.
Yeah, right. Yeah, or they just go to the gun cabinet because they've already got what they need.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
yeah, like. But more than likely, they got grandpa's gun that they got passed down from, generation to generation, so we got nothing to worry about. As they say, what's the old saying? I got this double out buckshot for duck hunting.
Yeah.
Here you go, my son. This is from the Troubles.
Oh, no. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, this is oddly enough, the farmer thing actually feeds into most of this. Is like most people who just buy, like, I don't really care about the interior racial makeup of the people at Microsoft. We already have laws in place where they cannot discriminate against you for being a minority.
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the discussion. The only company that I could think of that has had internal problems was, oddly enough, was Blizzard, but which Microsoft is in the process of having to clean up. But it's one of those things where it's like people don't really give a fuck. They just want their software to work. Which, given the recent crash, I mean, they've got some problems to solve there. But it's like it's the same thing with the video game division where. There was some, rumored to be an internal email saying that they shouldn't focus on the female characters in the games looking a certain way. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
say something.
Go ahead.
As a woman, I want my female characters to look good. Okay, I don't want to look whatever the fuck that is in fucking Fable.
Oh God.
Oh,
Like,
they did that poor model dirty. Oh
oh
goodness.
god.
Well, same thing.
This is why I stick to Japanese and Eastern games because
Well,
of shit like that.
Same thing that happened with Mary Jane in the Spider-Man game. The sequel. She does. The model and the character in the game do not look anything alike. And I like how people say, "Oh, it's just different because it's shading." I was like, "There ain't no shading to cause that much ugly."
Nah, fam, that ain't it.
You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the thing is like a lot of times you find out that it's like they're like it's an actual model that like they're fucking up. It's like, dear God, that poor woman.
right.
Meanwhile, you go over to the Resident Evil games.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand some people disliked the remake of Resident Evil 3, and I understand why. But Jill Valentine looked very good.
Yeah, she looked fine. Yeah.
And she was based on an actual woman. Same thing with Claire Redfield.
Mm-hmm.
It was really nice in Resident Evil 4 that Ashley doesn't look like a foot anymore.
All right. Yeah.
so yeah. Goes without saying though, get rid of this shit, because just speaking from an artistic standpoint, these sorts of people do not understand art, and they're gonna fuck everything up. They don't understand they don't understand anything. So don't hire people that don't understand anything, just because you've been politically pressured to hire them. Fuck all that noise. The people that are pressuring you don't buy your products. Fuck them.
Nope. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I have a button for that.
Fuck them.
All right. Let's move on to the land of Nippon.
By the way, keep that button close by. You're going to be using it again.
Probably. Speaking of which, for those of you who do not know, we actually have somebody with us today that has been to the land of Nippon and lived there for a time.
Hello.
I'll say, I'm like, don't miss your cue, Xavier.
Hello.
But
yes, I lived in Japan.
If something happens to me, tell my wife hello.
But Xavier will probably be able to give us a little bit of a cultural insight because he's actually lived there. So Serena is the one who definitely wanted to talk about this particular subject the most. So Serena, give us the lowdown on what exactly is going on here.
Apparently Ubisoft. Apparently, this new Assassin's Creed Shadows game has caused controversy in Japan because of inaccuracies or questions of whether Yasuke either was a samurai or not. I'm kind of still confused about this because there's some that say that he was, or he had the
Oh goodness.
the task, what do you call it? The tasks and duties of a samurai, but wasn't an official samurai.
Okay, so that's a little complicated.
Consider
let's
this:
go.
you can do the tasks of a manager and not be management and not be paid management wages.
God, that was me at one point.
Ubisoft was getting information about Yasuke from a discredited Japanese.
Yes. Okay, so there's a man by the name of Thomas Lockley. He worked at Nihon University, and he wrote a book. I'll quickly look this up, but he wrote a book claiming that Yasuke, who was a black man that somehow ended up in Japan, and ended up becoming the pet of Oda Nobunaga.
It
because
probably would have been when they were trading with the Dutch.
Yeah, and
according to the Wikipedia, which can only be trusted so much because its main source is this discredited guy that Mike was talking about,
who, by the way, had a fake name that he used to edit that same article.
And then cites himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, he was Yasuke was apparently a slave of a Jesuit priest.
And somehow he ends up in the ownership of Oda Nobunaga, who upon seeing him, asked his servants to wash this guy because he thought he was covered in coal. So after 3 days of washing him, it became apparent. Well, no, he's just black. So.
Oh, sorry, that's fucking funny.
So.
Not dirty, he's black.
Of all the people who laughed at that, I did not think be Serena.
Yeah, it's. I could just imagine Oda Nobunaga just hearing about it. It's like, Kokujin Dansei! Nani? Like, for those who don't know, Kokujin Dansei means black man in Japanese. But, he's just completely mystified at the idea of somebody could be that dark.
So, okay, from what I do know before everything got edited, Yasuke was a black dude, obviously, and then he
which we discussed days. Wow.
I'm getting all mixed up right now. Sorry, I have the window open for some reason. Okay, I apologize. It wasn't your fault. Okay, where the fuck was I? Yes, he's a black man, offered to Oda Nobunaga, and he was washed for 3 days straight. And then, where was I? Yes, okay, so in order to make sure that Yasuke didn't starve to death, he gave him a stipend, which is sort of like a salary. A short sword for self-defense, because even back then Japan was extraordinarily dangerous. If you wandered outside of the villages, and a place to live. And he became something known as a retainer, which is to say he wasn't a samurai. He was a dude that was just on staff.
He was in the employ of Nobunaga.
He was a gopher.
Yeah.
And what I'm pretty certain he was put in charge of was carrying Oda's weapons around for him whenever he needed them carried.
So kind of like a scribe.
Yeah, so unfortunately the evidence of him being a samurai is just sort of blank. There's nothing to suggest that he was a samurai.
It's like being in the medieval Europe. You have a sword and you fought some guys. You're not a knight. You don't have a title. You have no land. You have no taxes that you're collecting.
You have no station. Is the kind
you
of
have no station, but you're in medieval Europe.
For those of you who have read Berserk, think of the Band of the Hawk.
Yeah,
basically a mercenary.
Yeah,
sort of not really.
Assuming Yasuke even learned to fight with the sword, which he could have, it would just be easier to say he was a guy with a sword. He didn't have the station, he didn't have a title, but he was able to wrangle a job.
Because he looked strange in a land of strangers, and he was. Unfortunately, from what I also remember before everything got edited, was that he was captured by the enemy after Oda was killed, unfortunately, and he gave up. He didn't fight to the end. He just gave up.
Yeah, so not really.
He gave him the sword, which means you can't really call him a samurai.
Yeah, and also that's not the characteristic of a samurai.
I don't know when Bushido started taking up really counting for a lot in that. So it might have been that the practice might not have come in prominence yet of samurais killing themselves to
avoid capture. Yeah.
Avoid capture or the shame.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the Sengoku era.
Oh goodness, everyone was just taking heads everywhere.
He was a Marine admiral, Xavier. On the way. Oh, wrong Sengoku. Sorry.
Whoops. No, you're thinking of those little ninja girls.
That's Konoichi's.
Kunoichi.
Yeah, Konoichi.
Oh Lord. But so now we've got a big stink about all of this because
Thomas Lockley was the source of all of this, and he has been discredited by his own university because they vacated his position, and his entire department is just gone now.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, it gets so much juicier.
So, Ubisoft found them another historian to try to back up those claims. A name of Yu Hirayama.
And what, Optimus, is Yu Hirayama's specialty?
He is actually he does have what do you call it? God, his specialty is history. So, but let me explain what he did. As he's talking about the historical records on Twitter, by the way, he's not like doing official peer-reviewed study or anything like that.
He's on Twitter shooting from the hip.
He basically said it could be true, and people took that as, oh, it is true. Then, because this Japanese guy said it, and that's what we've been waiting for. We only need one Japanese guy to confirm our bias, right? But it gets better
with a maybe. Well, wasn't
but
there? Pause for a second. Wasn't there also the person that was the original correspondent for Ubisoft in regards to Japanese history? Wasn't it some chick on their team who was half Japanese, never lived in Japan, and her specialty was the research of effectively pedophilic relationships between samurai and young boys?
Yes.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that did happen.
That just what?
What
So-
the?
It always catches you off guard when when these fucking people pops up. It's disturbing.
It's a weird thing that's kind of in the West where depending on the college you go to, you get to determine what your major is, and you also get to make it up.
You made that up, right?
Why would you make that your focus of research?
Because why wouldn't we? But to return back to this, so now everybody's celebrating. The woke. I hate to say the wokies, but the wokies, and all that. They got their win, right? We found somebody who will say that the historical record is correct, and that Yasuke was a samurai, and this, that, and the third. But big but. Find out he works for a company that is owned by Sony. I can't remember the exact name of the company, but he works for a company that their primary goal is to westernize all Japanese media.
There's the fly in the pudding.
Oh, it gets better, Mike. Believe it or not, I'm not done.
Terrible.
He's also a communist.
Oh Lord!
And I'm not saying that as, oh, he's a commie because he's acting like a commie. No, he's an actual member of the Communist Party of Japan.
Oh no!
And on top of that, he's a Marxist communist.
Oh no!
Yeah. Even talking about, that Lenin guy had a great idea.
Where's Otoyo Yamaguchi when you need him? Come on.
I have another button. The instant I heard that, we haven't played this button yet, but I'm playing it now.
Okay.
I screaming inside my head. Oh no. Oh boy.
Jesus fucking Christ, man, really?
Yeah. So, like I said, you basically got two flies in the ointment, as Mike would say. You got one. We're going to westernize Japanese culture, and he's a commie.
The fact that he's a Marxist commie means that he will literally lie to your face and tell you it's true, and trust him, and you're an asshole for questioning him.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing on Twitter. Basically, he hasn't done the whole you're an asshole for not agreeing with me, because here's the thing: nobody else agrees with him. Every other person who studied the historical record do not agree with him. They said at the very least there is not enough there. There is not enough evidence to say one way or the other if he was a samurai, right?
About the only thing we've determined is a person called Yasuke existed. Maybe.
Yeah. We know he existed. We know he got a salary. We know He got a sword, and that's the extent, you know. And he might have been called a retainer, you know. And a retainer, like Mike said earlier, you know, a retainer is like you have a job. You know, that's essentially what that means.
And as far as giving him a place to live, he might have just had a room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's very much, you know, you're staying here, so we're gonna give you some chores to do.
It's one of those things that, like, so people are probably wondering, like, what the fuck does this have to do with Assassin's Creed? So, Assassin's Creed, like, Yasuke being fictionalized is not new.
No.
There was actually an anime done about him, very loosely based on him, because they made him a samurai. Which I admittedly never watched. In fact, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
I heard. I
Yeah,
haven't heard.
The first thing it flat out says is an alternate reality, 16th century feudal Japan. So it's very fictionalized. And Assassin's Creed, for anybody who has played it, is also heavily fictionalized. There's always historical figures that are in it. In the particular case of, like, let's say Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 2 basically has just about every major political figure of Italian politics back during the Renaissance period, to the point where I'm convinced that they just started picking names out of the Divine Comedy.
I mean, it's a good fan fiction, that book.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of people actually don't know that the Divine Comedy is political. that shocks the shit out of me.
Yeah, and it's full of people that Dante fucking hated.
Oh yeah. So
I'm depicting you as the soy jack that is burning in hell, and while I'm the Chad that gets to see heaven.
pretty, you know, it's funny because it's true. But the thing about it is that, so Assassin's Creed's always done that. Like they even did, for anybody who's ever seen the movie Hannibal, but you haven't played Assassin's Creed 2, they actually show you the hanging of, it's not one of the Borgias. It's Puzzi, I think is the guy's name, or Pazzo, one of the Pazza families. That one of those members that gets talked about, Pazzi. That's it. One of the Pazzis that the investigator from the movie Hannibal is a descendant of. But regardless, they've always taken liberties with history, but this one has sort of gone down as like one of the laziest, because they are quite literally turning Yasuke into a samurai, which, culturally speaking, a guy who was a former slave to a Jesuit priest, who was probably a Moor, I would imagine, one of the Moors originally.
Probably a Moor.
Would never be elevated to the role of samurai.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the there's like, Nobunaga would never do that. Nobunaga is too traditional. So having him as a samurai is a bit ridiculous. And the big thing is that, like, the Japanese, and Xavier could probably expand on this, the Japanese are very protective of their culture.
Yeah. I don't have anything. Well, they do have an entire governmental body on the preservation of that and historical sites. All the shrines, all the temples, all over the country, not just because those are heritage or tourist attractions, because they're important heritage sites. I know they're striving to keep the art and craft of woodworking, to keep those repaired and maintained along the lines of the original style. I apologize, you got over there while I was grabbing some research on more on this, because this Assassin's Creed Shadows could have been really fucking interesting story wise, because I think what they were trying to do is I think they were trying to set up that, as you know, Japan didn't have closed borders all the time. Obviously, they were trading with the Dutch back in the 1600s.
Yeah.
And then one day they but when you trade with Europeans, European missionaries eventually show up. And eventually that led to closing the borders because too many people are having their souls stolen by foreign religions. And this led to the Christian hunters who were going around and killing, all the Christians and the relatives of those Christians to make sure that the scourge doesn't spread. They were still trading with the Dutch, but there were only like certain. It was only like you stay on this island that we give you, and you don't come off the island. You stay there, and your ships come here, and then they leave. Because we know that the Templars were deeply embedded into the Catholic Church, they could have wrapped it up as Japan finding out about the Templars and by getting rid of them by banishing all of the Christians and the Europeans, and hunting them down is really just hunting down Templar agents, and just history just remembers it differently.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was probably going to be the way it went.
So you could have done some really cool shit here, but what about Yasuke? What about him? We can put him in here.
Yeah.
Because because of the timey-wimey stuff.
I mean, that would have been an interesting way to, instead of you playing as him, you could have had it like interesting, like you find him and he introduces you to Nobunaga.
Yeah.
That's historical figures and everything like that. But
how about this? Yasuke wasn't born a slave. He was just or being a slave was his cover, and he was actually just another member of an assassin order.
Well, yeah, especially if he was a Moor, you could fit it pretty easily because the assassins in this come from the Assassin order from the Middle East.
Yeah,
right.
Wasn't that the basis for Odyssey? And
no, it's the original. Well, I never played Odyssey, but the original game, like the Assassins, were actually a real faction in the Crusades.
Yeah.
So that's what they're based on is actually that, and it all starts in the Third Crusade, I believe, is when the first game takes place.
Yeah.
So you could have it to be like, it wouldn't be out of the idea for one of the Moors to have been an assassin.
Yeah.
So it would make more sense that Yasuke being just an information character, he's telling a Japanese protagonist about the Templars, what they're doing and what they're capable of, and now it's like we've got to scour these guys out of Japan. That would be cool. That would be interesting. Yes, but it's not very ESG of you.
You want to hear something really funny about this?
That isn't very good ally of you, my dude.
This is really funny. I saw this earlier because somebody, of course, this is that person taking that, that new, quote, new information from the real historian, right? Which we found out, he's not very much of a historian either. But they were trying to say, like, yeah, I can't wait for all these people who love, like, Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo to find out that there was actually a black samurai. I'm like, wait a minute. Does this guy think, does he think Mugen's a black guy?
I think so.
Did he not watch the first fucking episode of Samurai Champloo with the big fucking notice that says, we don't give a shit about historical accuracies, we're doing cool shit?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, to get back on track with this particular issue, the big thing now is that people are trying to think, and there are culture warriors out there that are thinking that, like, Japan is going to shut the game down and stuff like that. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
But we have seen a guy who had a job at a university being completely discredited by Japan as basically saying, no, you can't teach that this guy was a samurai. There's no evidence of it.
So,
I think the worst that'll happen is it won't get sold in Japan.
It won't sell very well in Japan.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying if it doesn't even get sold in Japan, it probably wouldn't have sold well there anyway. In all honesty, just from track record of Western games, in Japan. So
yeah, what were you going to say though, Serena?
Okay, so Yasuke is real. He just wasn't a samurai as people are claiming.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're. Yeah, that sums it up, right? And but it's all.
Heritage, and the Japanese don't like the idea of sharing their heritage with foreigners. Which, how would that explain the other samurais of other ethnic descents? Like, wasn't there a European samurai by the name of Arthur?
Yeah,
No.
as a.
I don't think it was Arthur.
There was a guy that was.
There was an Irishman, and that's what the lead character in Neo, the game Neo, is based on.
But he was a samurai of like Irish descent. So he was a foreign samurai.
So
I don't know if he
becoming
was a samurai
is
either.
possible. It depends on who they're working with.
Okay,
in terms
let me.
of, like,
Oh.
who their lord is, because I heard a story about this one guy who was a white guy that became a samurai. It might be the guy you're thinking of.
William Adams, that's his actual name. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, and he worked for the Shogun. But he was
an
also
advisor.
He was also, I believe, the person that told him about the missionaries and was instrumental in the closing the border and getting rid of the missionaries to death.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
actually
because wasn't he a
film-
Protestant? I'm pretty certain.
Yes.
Yeah, what did he
Yeah.
care? They're just Christians.
Okay.
What does he care?
So I'm looking through. Okay, yeah, he was under. Oh, Ieyasu did give him the status of samurai. So yes,
Oh.
it is possible.
So was it possible for Yasuke to be a samurai?
Yeah, well, that's the thing
Well-
is that like unlike with William Adams, like there's no actual evidence that Yasuke was. So the Japanese, being as protective as they are, they're going to be like, yeah, you can't just teach this if you don't know for certain.
And the meticulous record keeping that they would have, right? Like,
Right.
There's two. Okay, so there's a requirement to be a samurai. Is you need 2 swords, not just 1, 2. You need your katana, which is the only sword that samurai are allowed to wield. Anybody else caught with a katana would actually be like put to death. And your self-defense weapon was your watashi. That was just a little short.
Wait, so
because remember, era plays a factor in it.
it was just like a symbol, a ceremonial symbol to tell people you're a samurai.
Yes, and if you had a katana and you didn't have a master, you would be seen as a threat to the local order.
you'll be a Ronin to that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know this. This is actually pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
Hold on, I'm looking it up.
Hey, Mike.
Mm.
Hey, you better report to your daimyo.
Yeah.
Old inside joke.
Oh god, the oldest of inside jokes.
Okay,
Yeah, but-
Sengoku Daimyo. This is supposed to be about Sengoku period. Frequently said sign of samurai is his 2 swords, but this was a tradition that was only really starting to solidify during the latter half of the 16th century. Most bushi would wear or carry a long sword, and the short sword was often little more than a dirk. During the Sengoku period, people carry what they can get away with. The katana and usually the matching wakizashi are worn, sash on the left side. No one is left-handed in Japan, so no one would carry their swords on the right. Some higher-ranking individuals might opt for a more classical tachi, which usually hangs from a 2-ashi edge down, though still on the left. One way to get an idea of someone's rank is to observe how he wears his sword. One with a rank and authority wears his katana thrust through his obi almost horizontally, sticking it far out from him and behind, thus establishing his personal space. A more humble or low-ranking man wears his closer to the body, so the scabbard is almost parallel to his leg. Part of the reason for this is that to touch the scabbard of another was often deemed an insult, and at times could have been seen as a virtual challenge to an immediate duel.
It's only gay if the scabbards touch.
Yeah. Oh no. To get us back on topic, the ultimate thing is that yeah, this game is not going to get canceled. It's not going to sell well in Japan. I don't think it's going to do that well anyway, because it's honestly kind of lazy. Like to end this out, like they fucking copy pasted Zoro's sword from One Piece to make it Yasuke's, and that's going to get them in trouble with Shonen Jump.
Oh yeah.
So
They also stole the war banner of a Sengoku LARP group, like the ones that pretend to like, okay, I'm gonna go out and pretend to be a reenactor, Sengoku reenactors group. They stole a banner from them, and they got the banner owners got super chapped about it.
Yeah.
They are demanding it be removed from the art book, including the ones that are already printed, meaning that it doesn't matter
Recall.
if this has already been printed. You
Yeah.
better get it back and undo it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the unfortunate thing about this is that everybody has been clamoring ever since Assassin's Creed was created for an Assassin's Creed game where you play as a ninja. And they have done dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing after dumb thing to completely botch this and turn people off of it, because keeping it accurate to how Japan was at the time would have been a big appeal. And you could have had Yasuke as a character, and even as a playable character. But trying to make him a samurai who was best bros with Nobunaga, which just wasn't the case, you're just going to piss people off, because the part of the interesting part of playing an Assassin's Creed game is playing in a historical sandbox. And though they do take some liberties with the history, they don't always take this many. Like one thing I always loved about the first Assassin's Creed was how the Templars felt like Templars. Like whenever you fought a Templar soldier, they were like the elite, and they were dicks because they were known as like the most corrupt of the orders. Like stuff like that. Like, and then of course, like the second game had so many historical figures from the Renaissance, and then the third game, of course, America, which is why which is why I love Assassin's Creed 3. I mean, any game where I can go around and just fuck up the redcoats.
There is nothing wrong with killing 17th century British.
It's kind of alarming, though, how many people have learned such massive amounts of like European history they would otherwise never learn from Assassin's Creed.
Yeah.
Like, so many people know about, the Borgias and the Medicis and so much other shit because it was Assassin's Creed.
Well, yeah, and
it's
that's
kind
the
of
thing
cool, but it's also kind of alarming because how what's true, what isn't.
Well, here's the thing, and this is kind of where we're moving to close out this section. Is I brought up Ghost of Tsushima earlier. Ghost of Tsushima completely developed in the West, completely, no Japanese involvement whatsoever. The Japanese fucking loved it because we respected their culture so much that we took the time to get it right. They had great appreciation for that. And the reason why this is happening and why so much guff is coming from the Japanese is because they feel disrespected. They feel like you're fucking around with our history so much and our culture in a way that seems like you have no respect for our entire nation. And that's, in my opinion, it's a terrible, terrible thing. And oddly enough, I go back to the DEI thing because a lot of people that I have known throughout the years when I was a games journalist, things like that, never had any respect for the Japanese. And it seems like one of the main groups that gets bagged on by games journalists and people who are behind DEI initiatives and so on and so forth are like they bag on the Japanese all the fucking time. And I say this as somebody from the West who does have an admiration for the Japanese and their culture. I fucking despise it to see this sort of thing mistreated in the same way that I think of like how pissed off I get whenever our culture as Americans, or I can't speak for the Canadian in our group, but like for, like American culture, like whenever we get disrespected like that, it legitimately bugs me because it's like you can't pretend that this doesn't matter to people.
Mm-hmm.
So if the game fails, they deserve it, and I'm just gonna go play Ghost of Tsushima instead because fuck this. Okay, final topic of the day. So this has nothing to do with anything DEI or really bad historical literacy. This has to do with bad Halo literacy.
Yeah.
So the Halo TV show, which had 2 seasons on Paramount Plus, which oddly enough had Steven Spielberg somehow involved in this, though I have a feeling he probably wanted to distance himself from it. Yeah. The Halo TV show has been canceled. It's done. The showrunners say that they're looking for a new place to host it. That shit ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
I did not watch a single episode of this because I heard that I don't even consider this to be Master Chief. This is not Spartan 117. This is John Halo, the Master Chef.
Yes.
And we will refer to him as John Halo Master Chef for the rest of the show. Because Jesus fucking Christ, this guy is not the Master Chief at all.
He's not even a doctor.
He's first
Yeah,
off,
like-
the one thing I have seen that immediately turns him completely away from being the Master Chief is he's a cunt.
Yes.
Chief has never been a cunt. Ever. He's a soldier, but like the way he treated Cortana at the start, no, that's not the John that we know. That's not Spartan 117. What was that, Sarita?
How did he treat Cortana? Cortana. What did he say? Because I never watched the show. The only thing I know was that he ends up banging a chick. That's the only thing I know because it was heavily advertised.
That's something else, by the way.
He would never do that.
Yeah, he treated Cortana like shit in the TV show. That's at the beginning.
And then turned into a cuck queen.
Yeah,
The poor thing.
He was always polite with Cortana.
Yeah, it's like they were best friends, you know? And then Cortana went evil because Halo 5 happened, but then she got replaced with a cinnamon roll, and we're all good again.
Yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
But one thing I was going to bring up is like the whole thing with Master Chief being a dick in the show. It's like just play Halo Infinite.
Yeah.
And look how he treats Echo during the entire thing.
Yeah.
Like when the dude is freaking out, he's stoic. But he's not an unkind person. If the Master Chief was in a town and they were conducting a military operation and there's a burning building and he heard the scream of a child that was still in there, the very first thing he would do is he would give his gun to one of the people he's with and he would run into that building and he would save that child. The Master Chief is a hero. Period.
Exactly.
Point blank. This dude is effectively the Halo version of Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
He is, you know, he's been a part of military operations that he probably regrets, putting down dissidents and stuff like that because the government he works for is not good people. And Halsey is a cunt.
Yeah.
But Chief is a good man.
Yeah.
So when I saw him behaving like that, even though they had Jen Taylor actually physically playing Cortana, which I thought was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like him being a dick, I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna watch this. So, Xavier, tell me how bad this show was.
Well, like I said, I didn't watch it either, but I did watch clips enough of it to know that I'm not going to watch this. The big thing to me was not just Chief, but the Spartans in general were psychopaths, right? Like
They're not blue team.
They're not blue team. Like, they were talking about how basically they were talking about how much they liked murder and stuff like that, and it didn't matter as long as they had an enemy. That's all that mattered, Like, and I said that's some BS because not just taking it away from from Master Chief for a minute. If you played Halo Reach, I always remember how George was in that. And if you remember, George was sympathetic to people who were supposed to be at that point were their enemy, because the people that were at that station, they were actually forgot what they called. What was that faction called, Xavier? That was
The insurrectionists.
They were insurrectionists, right? And I think it was Emil who said something kind of cold, and George, being the big motherfucker that he is, he looked right dead at him. And he says, "The girl just lost her father." And I'm like, and there's very few people who would make Emil back down, and George is one of them. So, but that's showing like there's humanity there. He was trying to comfort her, And most of, especially like Xavier says, especially Blue Team. I mean, Blue Team was a family, right? That's the best way to classify Blue Team, you know? So, and the fact that if I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this, Blue Team was not even in this show.
No, they did this thing called the Silver Timeline. It let them do whatever they want, without having to worry about a Halo lore too deeply or impacting it too much. So we're kind of doing something different. Like, okay, that is fair. So they're hanging out with Silver Team is the name of his fire team, but there's only like 4 or 5 Spartans. Or 6, because they run into an escaped Spartan, and he's still wearing Mjolnir armor. Like,
yeah, he wouldn't have got away with that.
he wouldn't have got away with that. All of the escaped Spartans that ran away were caught and were given the choice to either retire and go do something else, but they're still under Oni's thumb, or they were reintegrated, reconditioned, and they didn't escape again.
Yeah.
I think the ones that did successfully get away were members of Red Team.
Yeah. But even then, they wouldn't have been able to get away with their Mjolnir armor. Like,
oh no.
No way. But no, like that's the whole thing. Like you said, Chief being a dick, Chief showing his face. Like,
that was stupid.
Chief takes his armor off in the books, but there are only certain circumstances when he takes his armor off. When an officer requires him to show up in dress uniform or he's making reports, he'll take his uniform off. When he's in his quarters for the night, he'll take his armor off. But otherwise, that armor is on all of the time because he has to be ready to fight all the time.
Yeah.
I have a disclosure. I have never played anything related to Halo. I've seen lore videos and stuff, so I have a bit of an understanding, but not a complete understanding.
I would definitely say if you get a chance, there's a lot of good compilations out there of all the cutscenes from Halo. Watch those. Yeah.
They talked about it in Spartan Ops for, I think, Halo 4 or 5. A big reason why the Spartan 4s are not considered Spartans by Halsey is they take their helmets off all the time, and especially in dangerous situations, and some of them are getting headshotted from it.
Yeah.
The Spartan 2s will take their helmets off sometimes, but never in a combat situation. Never in territory they don't control. It's always, when we're back to base, we can take our helmets off.
Yeah. This ain't a time to relax. We're in a war zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then like I said, the whole he bumped uglies with some chick. No.
Yeah, not something Chief would do.
Chief done that. There would be literally no time for that. And
he is much. He is not a sexual being. Like, in none of the books do sexual thoughts ever enter his mind ever.
So basically the same as a Space Marine.
Yeah,
in a way.
But they're basically virtually castrated.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, because there's female Spartans too, but same thing. You don't see like what Linda and or any of the female Spartans wanting to get it on or anything like that. No, they're business too.
Chief would fit in well with the salamanders.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, there were only 2 Spartans that crossed that line and started getting involved with each other, and that was during training when they were kids. And when it was found out, they got beaten mercilessly for it.
Yeah.
And
like none of that stuff.
You're not going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ain't no time. You got a war to win.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's another thing. Like Chief is and like you said earlier, Chief would be all business when it comes to that stuff. Like, the only time he went AWOL was because, and even then he wasn't really AWOL. Remember what was the term they used? You are in Halo 5?
You said you were absent without leave. That's AWOL.
Absent without leave. They were not going to ever say that Master Chief was AWOL. Right? because
that's what AWOL stands for. Is actually
that's
without
right.
leave.
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm just saying, that they would publicly they would never say, the Master Chief went AWOL. Yeah, like
Officially, Master Chief is missing.
yeah.
I can just imagine the representative from that government just being like, "Where is the Master Chief? He's on vacation." But sir, the Master Chief never goes on vacation. That's why he's on vacation. He's never taken one. We're giving him one.
Yeah.
No more questions. Thank you. We're out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things to me where like I saw clips of it too. It's like the way that Chief would when he fought an Arbiter in the show and killed him. Like he was kind of like callous to him, and that's not how Chief behaves. Like for example, when like Infinite's been out for a while, if you haven't played it, plug your ears for a minute. When he kills not Atriox, what was his name? Escharum.
Escharum.
When he kills Escharum, even though Escharum did what he did, he still gave him respect because, as Chief said, he was a soldier at the end of the day, praying that what he did was right.
Yeah.
He was. It's interesting that they go with Spartans because Chief is a guy who he has a code of honor. He's chivalrous.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I make the Captain America comparison. Is
Yeah.
that he is a lot like Steve Rogers, probably very inspired by Steve Rogers as a character, where he's the guy who takes up the standard to save people and to do everything that he can to save people, and he's a stoic, probably one of the best examples of a stoic in video game history. And I think that's part of the reason as to why people love him so much, is he is such a lovable guy.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to me because I've always believed that if there was a franchise that could do really well as a television show, it is Halo. Because the Bungie's way of storytelling, and this has been a problem since the fucking Marathon games, is here's all this great action. Oh, if you want to know what's going on, here's a book you can read. The only difference is in Marathon, they put the book in the game.
Yeah, like here's a terminal you can read, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Like let me take like 4 or 5 hours to stop trying to save the world and read these terminals.
Basically. But,
yeah.
But the one thing that the great thing about Halo is you could always count on getting to hang out with Chief and Cortana and go on an adventure. And then Keith David came in and stole the show.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm going to quote something from a machinima guy who made the guy does he kind of took the mantle after Team 4-Star folded, essentially, and started making funny things with Dragon Ball and whatnot.
Yeah.
And basically one of the little skits he had Cell and Kermit the Frog. Don't ask.
Based.
They were about to get their ass kicked by Darth Vader and Palpatine, right? And
I mean,
and they showed up in a Star Destroyer and everything, and all of a sudden, and so Kermit says, "Oh, don't worry, I know a guy." Right? Next thing you know, Master Chief comes in. And he's like, "Who's this guy?" And Cell says, "Who's this guy?" And he says, "Don't worry, he's got it." So the first thing Chief does is get into a warthog, throws grenades under it, and flips himself all the way up to the Death Star and starts taking shit out. and then Cell says "Wow, you think he can do it?" And then Kermit says this, and I said it's the greatest line ever. He says, "Yes, he can, Cell, because he's the goddamn Master Chief."
Funny and
the next thing you know, you see the Star Destroyer crashing to the ground, and he killed Darth Vader and Darth Sidious. It was great.
Oh man. But my thing is putting together a Halo show, I don't think would be that difficult. And if you want to have Blue Team with him, you can get Church in there. You can go ahead and get. Oh
wait, that's the wrong Blue Team.
Wrong Blue Team.
Yeah. But even if you didn't want to touch too much on
Chief, you ever wonder why we're here?
Yeah.
Now,
what
I just posted something in our podcast channel here. It's one of the most important ads that describes really who the Chief is, because the Halo 3 Believe campaign, which is one of the greatest fucking advertisement campaigns for video games in history, because of just how beautiful, how artsy, how everything it was, tells you everything you ever need to know about the Master Chief, is that he inspires people, you can believe in him, and then there's this page from a magazine, which, you know, includes, you know, an accommodation for him, and then the tagline, or the tag text just reads, "A hero need not speak. When he is gone, the world will speak for him."
Damn, that's so good.
That is really good.
Yeah.
And that was after Halo 2. You remember when the experiment was anybody can be a hero, and then they realized like, oh wait, we were wrong.
Yeah. But the
And
whole
of course,
thing
I
is
know.
like, you could, like, with a Halo TV show, you could easily follow the games, and
Yeah.
on top of that, like, if you want to turn the original game into a television show, you could actually start with the Arbiter split literally right there with Thel Vadam, because he was the leader of the forces that were chasing the Autumn.
Yeah.
So, like, right out of the gate, you could have Keith David. You know, you'll have the guy who voices Master Chief, because Chief just never takes the mask off.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the actor who played Chief was such a fucking dumbass. Like, oh, how do you characterize him? 2 words, motherfucker. Judge Dredd. So you're just you might as well be telling us all that you're not as good of an actor as Carl Urban.
In fact, if I remember correctly, didn't Carl Urban says the mask does not come off?
Exactly.
Yeah, he he demanded that. He says no, the mask doesn't come off. I'm like, thank you.
I'm willing to bet when Carl Urban was playing Rorschach in Watchmen, had they not filmed the scenes where he's got the mask
Hold
off,
on.
Hold up. That was Jackie Earle Haley. That was not Carl Urban.
I'm sorry, my bad. That's my bad. I'm mixing up my actors. Ignore me.
Ignore me.
Ignore me.
Yeah, we had to stop you there, because it's like, no, do not take that away from Jackie Earle Haley.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mixed the two of them up, but
No, you're
But
good.
similar situation, you know.
Yeah, Jackie Earle Haley is another good example, because
Yeah.
he only takes the mask off in the Watchmen film like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
and it's because, you know, the scene required it.
And
You
one
know,
was
and if they weren't doing that bit,
Yeah.
he never would have done it.
the one in prison is the best one, because like at the end, you know, he goes to the warden's office after the prison break and stuff and says, "Give me my face."
Yep.
I said, "Oh, that was good," and I believe that was not in the original book.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think it was, but that was still a cold line. Like, "Give me my face," you know, like.
The big thing though, just like with Halo, is like it's one of those things that you can translate really well to a television show, because you can work in, if you need more for an episode, you can work in the lore.
Yeah.
And you can do so really, really easily. And you know, you have in a lot of ways the best sort of a buddy cop relationship, if you're looking for that, with Chief and Cortana. You know, Chief is the street man, Cortana tells the jokes. And Jen Taylor, of course, you know, has a ton of charisma. She's a tremendous voice actress, tremendous actress in general. People love her. Cortana is so iconic that they tried to make software out of her, like in real life.
Yeah.
And if Microsoft ever does create the first self-aware AI, it will probably be named Cortana. Which, given how Cortana ended up, is kind of horrifying. But, you know, at least Skynet will have a pretty face.
It's like, man, I get. At least-
And we got Skynet.
Oh, we do have Skynet. You know what it is? It controls fucking an Iron Dome. It's fantastic.
This is
Well,
true.
We gotta die as a species soon.
The Brits also put up a satellite that's called Skynet.
Oh,
Yeah,
goodness.
we are definitely kind of pushing it, aren't we? But overall, back to the Halo thing. The whole gimmick is like it is like I can't say nothing of value was lost, because I really feel like something really cool could have happened here, and I really feel like that era of gaming had a lot of really fun games in it that are still remembered to this day that could be translated to other mediums quite well. I also feel like Gears of War could be a great television series. You know, just good luck finding somebody who could actually play Marcus Phoenix. I don't want Dave Bautista. Nothing against Dave Bautista, but I played the Dave Bautista mode in Gears of War 5. And that basically told me I don't want Dave Bautista as Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah.
Why?
He just doesn't have the... Marcus Phoenix as a character has a bit more intensity to him than Dave Bautista has. And when Dave Bautista gets super intense, it can actually be kind of silly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to drop a line that will probably make Wayne laugh. You're supposed to be my friend!
Oh, God. Ray!
So,
Imagine getting so mad at your, 5'2" friend that you just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Because you lost a title,
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I actually think that the Gears of War, like those guys would be hard to cast because they are very well fleshed out, except for Cole, because he's just like Lester Spate.
Yeah. I mean that's an easy one. That's an easy one, right? They were just like, what was great about that. Just a quick little trivia on that. They had already had like Coltrane's like look and everything, and then Lester came in and did the voicing and stuff like that, and they were like, "Yeah, we got to rework this model." So they made him look more like Lester.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, he loves playing Cole.
Oh yeah.
He like I have seen people like see him on the street and go Coltrane, and the first thing he goes is "Woo!" Like he's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Coltrane is already cast, but the fact of the matter is that we've got there's so many video games that could make good television series. Halo was one of them. They blew it. This is one that needs to be started over with people behind the show that actually understand Halo and the tone and the candor of it and the background of it.
I hypothesize that the people who are behind the Halo TV show hate the military.
Yeah, that's the whole vibe I've been getting from every clip I've seen. Because like all the Spartans are maniacs. That they baby killing maniacs.
It's very clear
goodness.
that the UNSC
The bad guy-
are the bad guys.
Yeah. Humans are in the Covenant, which would never happen.
Yeah,
There's-
because the whole thing about the Covenant is that humans bad.
Well, the whole thing was who was it? The prophets in the lore. The prophets basically already know that the humans are supposed to be Forerunner, and they don't want to compete with as far as spiritual having a spiritual hold over the Covenant. They don't want to compete because.
Yeah.
One of the things, like the elites, that was one of their questions. Was like usually that the idea of the Covenant is like you either conquer or you bring them into the fold, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, why aren't we bringing this race in the fold? They're actually really good fighters.
They fight good, yeah.
They fight really good. We should like bring them in, and they're like, no, So
the original plan, everything that was alluded to, was that the humans were actually descendants of the Forerunners. That the Forerunners, killed themselves and then reseeded themselves, and that became ancient man. But then that was retconned and changed because although it was subtly hinted at, it was never blatantly officially said. So it was easy to have the Forerunners just be a separate race that also occupied with ancient humanity. That was also a high advanced race.
yeah.
And they duked it out with each other. But the prophets knew right away because every Covenant ship has a scanner that specifically scans for Forerunner items. When they first found a human ship, it said it had a Forerunner artifact on it. And they scoured that ship, they didn't find nothing. They just found a guy, doing his job, doing some space trucking. Well, when they checked what that symbol meant with the prophets, it's the symbol for reclaimer. And that's what Spark calls Chief the first time he sees him is Reclaimer.
Yeah. Because, and that's why I say another thing that if, Michael, you said it best. If they borrowed more, honestly, if they borrowed more from the game and went with that tone, it would have probably been better, and we would probably be talking about, like, can't wait for season 3 because we'd all be watching it,
Yeah.
But,
they someone claiming that they were a prisoner on a Covenant, ship for a little bit, and that's how
you wouldn't be
you
wouldn't be a prisoner on a Covenant ship. You'd be dead.
It's very rare that they take prisoners.
Yeah.
The prophets knew that Halo was a weapon.
Yeah.
Like, no, they don't. That's why they're about to set it off. Is they think they're about to ascend to godhood.
Yeah, they think that the great journey is like we're going to become gods. That's what they think the great journey is. Not that we're about to blow everything up.
Of course, John Halo's a weapon. I mean, he's named after the game. I mean, come on.
He's not even a doctor, Mike.
He's not even a doctor.
No, he's a master chef.
He's a good. I heard he's a pretty decent chef. I did hear that Gordon Ramsay did not like his cooking.
No.
Called him a donkey or something like that.
You donkey!
You donkey! You donut!
What's all you? An idiot sandwich, sir.
What is with people who hate these franchises and IPs being given reins to adapt them into a show?
Oh, because they genuinely
have
have no. Yeah, they have friends, and they genuinely have no other thing going for them. Unfortunately, they can't put down the things that they actually want. So then they go to these projects out of spite, and then they write for them, and then they write them out of spite, and then they run them into ground as a form of protest because they're not allowed to put their own little projects forward, like gay black samurai being in Japan killing black people to the tune of rap music. But it's a bit of a problem, unfortunately.
It needs to stop being a problem.
Well, that's why we were so happy that the DEI department of Microsoft is gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a step in the right direction. So, needless to say, it's unfortunate that it all got fucked up as much as it did, but maybe someday we'll get an actual good Halo show. I'm of the opinion that Netflix should probably try to get their hands on the IP because the current head of the creative division for Netflix right now is somebody who created Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Just
if they
saying.
want to do this and they want to do it right, instead of doing a Halo series, what they need to do is just do as a multi-part thing a Halo story. Be like the Fall of Reach.
So you're saying kind of like Sherlock.
I haven't seen Sherlock, so I can't say yes or no. It would just be
Sherlock was less TV, like a series, and more like mini movies, right? And so it was more like instead of an hour show, it's more like it's an hour and 30-minute movie, produced for television. So they could do and the way they did it is instead of doing like that, they would do maybe 3 or 4 stories per quote season, and
I would do it more like okay, we need a couple episodes to really hit our character developments and get our good moments, but also pace out our action. So you have 10 episodes, you focus on a single storyline. It's like you have 10 episodes to tell the Fall of Reach. The end.
Well, that's just a TV show.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, what I'm saying is don't treat it as an ongoing thing. You tell the story, and then you're done. Okay? And if people like it, you can tell another one. But you keep it to the story is done by the end of the season.
Gotcha. So basically, if the show has to end, then you're not going to feel unfulfilled. I get you.
Right.
Yeah, and by the way, that's the thing about Halo, the first game, is that it actually ended in a way that if that was the end, then that could have been the end. But but you could still do more if you wanted to. So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, just as it stands, the big fuck up was the fact that they had people working on the show that didn't like Halo. Just get people who like Halo, that want to make Halo, and then they'll make Halo, and then it'll be fun. It's that simple. But Hollywood is just amazing at fucking these sorts of things up. So, with all that said, that is it for our discussions here on the grind this week. If there is any moral to the story, it's that honestly trying to get in, like, and this is sort of the big thing that I've noticed is, like, that's a common thread along all three, is if you kind of let the overly political start to bleed into what you're doing as a creative outlet, you start to really fuck over the people that you're supposed to be serving. Because I really feel like the one thing that is misunderstood from so many entertainers out there, which is part of the reason as to why Grindstone Arts has been founded, is too many of them misunderstand the idea that, like, you're not here to be preachers. You're here to be entertainers. It's a service industry. What we do is a service industry. And we're happy to serve you guys with stories as often as we can. So what you can still find over on the Indiegogo world, there is less than a week left for the Second Chance campaign for Inglewood Book 2, and we need a lot of help to get it across the lines. If you have not backed it yet, please do so. Black Rhapsody from Serena is still available over on Indiegogo. On top of that, we've also got my novella American Monsters still available on top of 3 Nights, 4 Days Part 2. And also, we are going to be publishing a comic book from the YouTuber The Almighty Lolly called Cyberpop Control Theory. I'm the editor on that book, and the mailing list is up and available now. If you have not gotten on that mailing list, please do so that way you can be notified when the campaign goes live. Plus, the covers of that book, if you sign up for the mailing list, you can get what are called virgin covers, and if you don't know what that means, it's basically covers of the book without the trade dress everywhere. So, with all of that said, I think this is a pretty good episode. But whatever you do, don't let the world dictate what you ought to put in your art. If you do, it's not yours anymore. So on that note, for Wayne, for Xavier, for Serena, and for Mike, my name is Micah Curtis, the president of CEO and co-owner and all that other fun stuff of Grindstone Arts. We will see you guys next week.
Brick.
Correct.